What is going on, everyone? It is day 2 of training camp for the Houston Texans, and I can't tell you how excited I am that football is back. We are already seeing all types of clips and interviews from these Houston Texans and these coaches that are, honestly, guys, really getting me excited for the season. Now, the practice on Saturday, it will be the first practice that is open and available to the public. I will be there. Let me know if you guys are going to be there also. I'm going to show up as early as 4:45 to be at that gate. I want to be the first to get there. Hopefully, we can see you guys. We can have fun. Talk some Texans football, drink a couple of beers. Now let's go ahead and talk about training camp. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. 713, and this is the 713 Houston Sportcast, where I drop daily Houston Texans content. So please make sure you guys are following me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest Houston Texans news, rumors, and updates. Now, we're going to be looking at the offensive line because, like we've said all offseason, the Houston Texans are an offensive line away from the Super Bowl. And I said multiple times on the channel, on Bleacher Report, on ESPN 97.5, that if the offensive line that is thrown out there for the first time in training camp is the same offensive line that was thrown out there for organized team activities, OTAs, and training camp, then that's potentially the starting offensive line for week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams. But the Houston Texans surprised us all. It was Landry Locker who first tweeted this out. Shout out to Landry Locker, Cody Stutes, Jonathan M. Alexander, Aaron Wilson, Adam Wexler. They are at training camp. They all do a fantastic job covering the team. But Landry Locker, I saw it first, and the Texans had Cam Robinson at left tackle. No surprise there. At left guard, it was Laken Tomlinson. No surprise there. At center, this is where I'm kind of surprised, but not really. Jared Patterson was at center, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the beginning of the offseason, we were talking about who is going to be the starting center for the Houston Texans, Juice Scruggs or Jared Patterson. And, we kept on having that conversation until we started seeing during OTAs and mandatory minicamp, Jake Andrews be prioritized at center. So it does not shock me that, it does shock me that Jared Patterson is there at center, but it also doesn't, because this is someone who a lot of Houston Texans fans thought was going to be the starting center for week 1. At right guard, it's Titus Howard. No surprise there. And at left tackle, this might be the biggest surprise of the day, and that was Ariante Ursary starting at right tackle, not Blake Fisher. Now, this is crazy, ladies and gentlemen, because Ariante Ursary is a rookie. Do you want a rookie out there as your starting right tackle for week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams, who have a damn good defense? Let me know in the comments down below, how comfortable on a scale of 1 to 10 will you be with this offensive line thrown out there? Because once again, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Jared Patterson, Titus Howard, Ariante Ursary. I will feel confident in this offensive line. Of course, I'll be, cautious about the rookie. But if Ariante Ursary is able to beat out Blake Fisher, is able to beat out Trent Brown, is able to beat out any other of these tackles who are fighting for the spot, then go ahead, a rookie. But this was the offensive line for day 1 of training camp for the Houston Texans. Now let's go to the second offensive line that was thrown out there during day 1. Ariante Ursary at left tackle. Juice Scruggs at left guard. Jake Andrews at center. Titus Howard at right. They're trying to get him as much reps as he can possibly get before the season at right guard. And Blake Fisher at right tackle. Let's get to today's practice and see what was the offensive line thrown out there. Now, shout out to Landry Locker, man. Once again, dropping hella Houston Texans content. The first offensive line in walkthroughs today. At left tackle, a surprise. Ariante Ursery, the rookie. Now, I talked about being cautious about him being on the right side. I would be super cautious about Ariante Ursery starting week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams, against the reigning defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse. Right? You would have to think, man, he beat either he just straight out balled out, or Cam Robinson was just not what we expected to be. At left guard, Laken Tomlinson. So I think it's safe to say that Laken Tomlinson is your starting left guard. Center, Jake Andrews. Now, I can't wait to find out how the offense did today. I heard there were a lot of running plays, but Jake Andrews, I could potentially see starting for this Houston football team, and I could say the same thing about Jared Patterson. Now, I would say they're neck and neck with Jared Patterson getting the nod yesterday. Right guard, Titus Howard. No surprise there. Like I mentioned earlier, he's trying to get as much reps as possible. And then at right tackle, it was Blake Fisher. The second offensive line that was thrown out there was Cam Robinson at left tackle, Juice Scruggs at left guard. So I think the experiment of Juice Scruggs at center is gone. Jared Patterson was the center in the second team unit. Ed Ingram was your right guard, and I think your right tackle was Sid Thomas. I believe Michael Thomas, but I'll have to double check. But the Houston Texans are maneuvering. They are shuffling this offensive line. And, I think when you have a defensive line of Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, some pretty good defensive tackles as well, you want to see everyone go up against the very best. After the first 2 days of training camp, I could confidently say that there was 2 spots secured on the offensive line. Laken Tomlinson at left guard and Titus Howard at right tackle. At left tackle, I really do think it's going to be Cam Robinson, but it's interesting that the Texans started Ariante Ursery at left tackle, and I could say the same thing about Blake Fisher. And then center, the battle was here. Jake Andrews, Jared Patterson. If I had to put all these names together and I had to spit out the starting 5, I would go Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson. Let me go Jared Patterson, Titus Howard. And this is where it gets tough. I'm going to right now stick with the veteran, even though he's only in year 2, and that is Blake Fisher. But ladies and gentlemen, 2 days of training camp practice have came and went. Football is officially back. This was the offensive line for the first 2 days. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. And for more Houston Texans content, you guys know what to do. Feel free to follow me for more. Go Houston. Have a very blessed day.